What is up, people of the internet? Cosmic Adults here once again, and this time we have a bit of a wild one for you because we've done bits and pieces about religions and we touched upon them here and there. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about Mormonism, and we have, let's say, a person, a very good friend of ours, a spiritual guide, a spiritual channeler, Cindy here, and she has direct experience from the streets of life with the church, more I'm guessing the Book of Mormon and Mormon Church and all sorts of stuff that's going on there, which is already pretty wild. But welcome, Cindy, and welcome to the podcast again. This is our second time having you on, and yeah, I don't know, Mercedes, do you have anything else for the introduction, or we just like dive deep
Well,
into?
you did leave out one key describer of being the cosmic mom. The cosmic mom is here. I'm just pumped about that.
Of course. Now let's say track back a little bit in history. So you were raised Mormon when
Mhm.
you were growing up. Is that correct?
Yeah. My mom was an only child, and when she was around 12 years old, she was looking for a church to join, and she came across Mormonism. Like, her mom was definitely not a religious person at all. And I've learned that my mom, when she makes a decision, she follows through with the decision, even if she might feel that it's the wrong decision. She's like, I've made a decision and I will stick to this for the rest of my life. Not realizing that that's who my mom is, she decided on Mormons, to join the Mormon church. So this was like sometime in the 50s or 60s. So like, even the church in the small town that we were in, it was like a small church itself. But yeah, so my mom joined that church, and then she met my dad, who was not a Mormon, and I think she might have given him an ultimatum at some point. It's just like, you need to marry me and you need to join the church. And so he did that at some point, and however his journey was in deciding that. So he didn't come from a Mormon background either. Yeah. And so my parents had 9 kids, and I'm the middle of those 9 kids. My parents divorced when I was in grade 12, and my dad went his way, and which was away from the Mormon church, of whatever his journey. My mom is stayed in it full on all these many years. And two of my younger sisters are also still actively um, participating in the religion that is Mormons. Yeah, but the rest of my siblings, we all kind of went our own path.
This is extremely interesting because
Is it?
usually, for me, it is because I'll just maybe fill in the audience because I think we had a conversation about this, and then I was like, oh my god, I need to know more about this because everything until that point, I had heard about the Mormon religion was absolutely freaking crazy. Like every piece of information that came my way, and it came from everywhere. I learned a little bit. It seemed wild that there were so many problems with it. Let's put it that way. I wanted to kind of know more, and you gave me a really good recommendation. I will give this to the audience as well. It's I would say a TV show, but it's also based on true events and based on a book that's based on true events. It's called Under the Banner of Heaven, and you can learn a lot about the Mormon religion in that TV show. But I just maybe disclaimer: if you're a very sensitive person, it's almost gut wrenchingly painful to watch. There's many reasons, but it's a very good TV show, and it teaches you a lot about Mormonism. And and even I would say fundamentalist Mormonism,
Mhm.
because there's a difference here. There's a big difference here. Um, I'll ask you this: what was the, let's say, the environment in your kind of home growing up? Did you have to go do the very, very, I don't know. I I'll bring one more thing in. You know, this was just wild. You know,
Do it, do it.
Please.
you know, I might be, you know, all of my Mormonism facts aren't 100% most likely, but if a woman starts to marry a man, or you know something happens, very does their testimony, there's weird things happening there. They go to
Mhm.
this lady, and for some reason the lady takes olive oil and puts it on their private parts.
Yeah, I don't have an experience in this.
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no.
that's wild.
It's that was depicted in that show
Yeah,
under
yeah.
the banner of heaven, which is part of the sacred ceremony, sacred in the temple when they get married. And nobody tells you this. It's because it's a secret. And so any Mormon woman that is about to get married to her husband, she doesn't even know that this is something that's going to happen. So she goes into the temple, and then they say, take off all your clothes. And then they put this like robe over her. And then a woman touches every part of her naked body underneath to make sure there's some level of purity. But I obviously don't have that experience because I left the Mormon church way before getting married in the church.
I'm super
And
happy
all
for
of them.
you, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Under the Banner of Heaven showed these things. So when that show came out, my younger sister, she was just like, you have to watch this. And so of course, like when I finally did watch it, I was like, holy dang, like when you know the things that they're talking about, like what is the testimony, or you know, what is baptism, and what is like their process, you can really see that that shit is messed up. You know, like when you see the whole thing put into like an hour episode or 6 episodes or whatever it is, and you see the bigger picture of it, you're like, why would anybody in their right mind actively choose this religion to follow and be part of? But when you're born into it, this is like where you know only what you know. And then when you, let's say as an adult, you start to get into it, you again only know what they're sharing with you. Like there's a lot of secrets and things that are withheld. And then they, you know, they put the like the easy to believe stuff right up front, like, you know, the God, the Father, the Son, you know, the Holy Spirit, that kind of thing. And everyone's in agreement that these things are real, and the Bible is, you know, really a guide and whatnot. But it's like the more that you commit to it, it's like they ask of you, like, and they almost sort of like, in the way that the church has been throughout history, it is this sort of like, you gotta believe, and if you don't believe, then you've got a problem. And so anytime that you question something, then it's just like, well, pray about it until you find that you're wrong and God is right.
Until you're wrong. And oh my
That
God,
is
this
that
is
is
sounding a lot like
exactly
Santa Claus.
this is exactly one of the reasons why I was like, I was watching the show. I knew what I knew about it before, obviously, but I was watching the show. I was like, what is, like, why isn't anybody doubting this? You know, why are people going along with it? But it's a very, because there's a lot of things going on with the community behind it, because there's so much influence and community and business and money. Everything is connected to it, and you know, even your kind of like, you might, even if you leave the church or you do something wrong, you might lose your entire family, you might lose your business. All of that kind of control mechanism is there for to keep people in fear. For me, you know.
Well, yeah, except like it's not as intense as from what I understand with the Jehovah Witnesses, like the disfellowship. So like if your son chooses to not be Mormon, they don't say reject your son. Though maybe some people might reject their children, but then that's just within them, that's their own decision to do that. The church doesn't say like disown your kids if they choose a different path. So that's not something that's like, whereas in Jehovah Witnesses, if they have gotten baptized, then and they choose a different path, they have to be disfellowshipped and all that other stuff. So it's a little bit different on that one. But some, like the real, I don't know, fundamentalist is the wrong word, but because in Mormonism, the church split off at some point. And one of the things that they have in their doctrine, which was like to obey the laws of the land. And that got brought in at a certain time when polygamy, like the old founders were really pushing polygamy and for whatever reasons that you can see now, which were really dark and twisted, and then they validated it and it's like, no, we got to do this because God said so. And then all of a sudden the laws of the land say, no, you can't do that. And then they're like, okay, my bad. But then a faction split off. And they're like, no, we still want to practice this. And so that's where you have the fundamentalist Mormons, and then you have the Latter-day Saint Mormons. So they are still using the same book, the Book of Mormon, but how they interpret it and control the masses is unique to their group.
This is one of the key points I think you brought out is whatever the prophet deems is necessary now for them. They've always framed it as God speaks to me and told me to become a polygamist and take 3 wives a minimum, and go about that at any age, over, I don't know, 12, 14. It's wild what was happening back then. Okay, this is I think we're establishing the foundation that this is fucking crazy, but the point I'm also wanna ask you, Cindy, is like, because it seems like you mentioned you got out of it in your 20s, but how was it kind of almost framed to you, or how was it explained to you as a young adult or a child, these concepts, or what was happening there?
Well, from what I remember, like there was I don't know, it's like the men, they went into their group and the women went into their group, and then all the kids went into their group, but they separated the girls from the boys and everything, so it was done separately for the most part. And because they had different teachings for it. So the men, they were the ones that could give blessings to people for healings, which was to like put oil or whatever on the crown of the head, and then they put their hands on top of the head, and then they say a blessing or a prayer. So kind of like channeling, and it, going into the person. However, I don't exactly sure how that one started, but only men can do that. And then the women have their roles within either the marriage or in the church as well. And of course, now they say like, oh, your role is very important. They still say, like, they really give the acknowledgement, the validation that, you are a contributor, but still, no, you can't have the ability to do a prayer for somebody, hands-on prayer, because you haven't been given the gift of the holy priesthood or whatever, because you're a woman. So there's that segregation of that, and you accept that as normal as a kid. And then I want to say, in my observation of when one of my nephews was getting baptized, I saw the sort of like, how was it, like all the little kids did this presentation on the Sunday in church, and so my sister invited us to come to watch my nephew do this, and it was like, do you guys know what you're doing to these kids? Like, you could see it because you're like an outsider coming back into it. And of course, my sister didn't see it, what I saw, but it was this like, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to say, which was like, I want to get baptized. And so the kid is just doing what they're being told to want and desire. So at 8 years old in the Mormon churches, they believe that that is a time where you can receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. And I mean, I understand that as like not true now. Where is like the Holy Spirit to me is like that inner knowing, that inner voice that will always guide me. And I think a little kid under 8 years old still has that little voice that will guide them. So it's not just you have to go perform the ceremony and get dunked underwater, and then have the priesthood men do this blessing on top of your head that says, okay, now we are going to act as conduits to give you this gift. I don't agree with that now, but that's how it was when I was a kid. It was just do as everyone else is doing, because to you it's normal.
Okay, so my question coming in here is like kind of a two-pronger. So when you were talking about the wedding ceremony or whatever that you had, or that you didn't have, sorry, that you haven't gone through, what were the ceremonies that you did experience in the Mormon church? And then also part two, I want to know what the moment was that you saw something that you were like, and I'm done. I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. This isn't my thing.
Yeah.
Like your exit. What was your exit moment?
My exit moment. Okay. Yeah. It wasn't that, oh, this is wrong at all. But the ceremonies that I did do was getting baptized. I feel like that is the only one, other than just like maybe, oh no, yeah, I did do something else. Yeah, that's kind of dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buckle up. No, it's just, I'm like, it's just what Mormons do. So like, to me, it's like, it's normal, but when you're on the outside looking in, it's like really messed up. So they have their temples, which is only like, you can only go into a temple unless you get a temple recommend, which is from the priesthood or the bishop of whatever church that you're in. And then he gives you that slip of paper. Basically, you have had to have like made sure that you are holy and good and that you have repented of all your sins, type of thing, before you can go into the temple. So I think when we're like 12 years old, they start bringing you into the temple to do baptisms for the dead. And so you act as a proxy, and you get dunked underwater for names of people who have crossed over to the other side, giving them a chance to choose that belief, I guess, on the other side. So then they can then maybe ascend within the heaven realms that the Mormon church depicts. Like there's 3 kingdoms of God: terrestrial, telestial, and celestial. And when you are in the celestial kingdom, which is when you get married and you're like sealed to your husband or wife, then you together go to the celestial kingdom. If you're really good Mormons, Mercedes laughs at me.
I love it when she says good Mormon. I'm like, it sounds like an oxymoron, like it's an opposing force.
Yeah, when you're there, then in the celestial kingdom, like they give you all these promises throughout the religion. So if you're like, if you are, you can have your kids with you for all eternity. You can have your partner with you for all eternity. And so my sisters on Facebook, they'll be like, married for 20 years and eternity to go. And I'm like, holy dang. So these are seals and promises that they're binding themselves to. And once you're in the celestial kingdom, top notch, top tier, then you get to create your own worlds. Like you get to be God over some other kind of world. So they sell you a purpose and a reason for being part of their church till the very end. And so there is this fear that if you step out of that, then you're going to, maybe not make it.
Gotta say, I have to say, this, like the sales tactics and marketing tactics are pretty darn good and thought out.
It's like the 99 cents. It's as good as that.
Yeah. So
you did a baptism of the dead, and you had your own baptism within the church. That's so interesting. These
and
Thanks. Yeah. Because I mean, I think about my own experience in the Catholic Church where
Mhm.
I had my own,
Mhm.
you know, baptism and first communion and like all
Yeah.
this stuff. And I, as a child, agreed to all these things and it was normal within my family. So I feel where you're coming from, where you're like, oh yeah, I guess that this would be like strange hearing it like somewhere else, or like how you were talking about how when you came in after being outside and watching that baptism of your nephew,
Yeah.
that you're like, oh, okay, that's strange.
Yeah, definitely, right. So I can see that. And then my one sister that's still active within the church, she had heard a statistic somewhere probably within the church that said people who are religious have happier families. And her family is so important to her. And she's like, sometimes I don't really agree with the things I hear at church, but I want the happy family. So she goes and she allows her kids to indoctrinate and she'll allow them to make choices. My parents were really easy with it. It's like they forced us to go to church when we were kids, but like as teenagers and stuff, it's like, man, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Like there was no guilt or shame about not going to church after a certain age at all. Yeah, no, my parents were both very accepting of go your path. So the pressure in my household wasn't like that. And there was no guilt or anything around that one. So I was like a rebellious teenager for sure. And I was doing everything that was not church stuff. And
Not
then,
what a good Mormon would do.
and then I think it was the bishop there at the church then knew I was going a different path. And then he asked me to do a talk and on the Sunday in front of the congregation. And I was always taught that if you were asked, you could not say no, because he was being guided to ask you to do this. And so I said yes, but the topic he gave me, I still wish I knew the topic that he gave me. But it was so convoluted and I had zero understanding or concept of what he wanted me to talk about. And I was super rebellious. I didn't want to do this, but I felt like I had to say yes to it. And then on that Sunday or whatever, that Saturday night, I went and stayed somewhere where nobody knew where I was and nobody could find me on Sunday morning. And everyone was like, Cindy, can't believe you did that. And I was like, I can, because if you saw what I had to, and that's when I was like, I want nothing to do with this. This is like, I was starting to experience the shame maybe inside myself because I was really like, I was smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. But then what they wanted me to do, I was just like, no, I don't want to do any of this. So as a teenager, I totally pulled away from the church. And then when I hit like a certain age, what was it? It was like 21. I was very much at a loss for my life. Like any 21-year-old is this like, what do I do with my life? I didn't know anything. And all I did know was the church had a structure of some kind. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to go back to church. So I went back to church. I quit smoking and whatnot. And as an adult, a young adult, I was choosing church. And it was like, I think for about a year around that. And I mean, things were good in certain areas, like my health, because I wasn't smoking anymore. But yeah, there just came a point where I was like, I don't need to do this and I don't want to do this. And so I just stopped going and never went back. So that's how that happened.
So you did a runner and then you're like, and I'm out. I love it. I love that so much.
Basically, as I understand, there isn't kind of like any formal, I don't know, again, a ceremony that you need to do to kind of leave it. Just freaking stop, and that's it. Or I know if you do something bad, you can get excommunicated. That's okay.
Yeah, you're right. And and no one excommunicated me. They were aware that doing things outside of church whatever, but no one's just like, hey, if you need to change your ways or you're going to excommunicate. So no one gave me that threat at all. And then I think, oh, well, now as an adult, well, that's sneaky, because still my name is on their records as a member of their church. And they don't want to lose your name, because it's like how I think how in my mind it works, like the polygamists were like, we need to have lots of babies because we need to grow our church. We need to establish our church. So they wanted to make lots of babies and indoctrinate it easy that way. And it was like building God's army. And so it's like my name is still in their files, and I have reached out twice. I could definitely push a lot harder to be like, I want my name removed. But it was like the 2 times I did reach out, it's like, oh, I don't know who you talk to for that. So like, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the prophet. But okay, it's so weird, because if you start to put these pieces together, and if you go back to Joseph Smith, the so-called creator of this religion, and Brigham Young, and these types of people, you can start to see really a pattern. And I think it's a pattern in many religions. And one of my issues with the religion is that very point, is it's all kind of geared towards putting the men in power. And I'm not saying like I'm not a extreme feminist. I'm not saying men shouldn't have power anywhere. Obviously we should, and women should as well. But the problem with religion, and organized religion, is all of that power gets put to the top and only to the men, in order to control the other people. And whatever they say is gold, and nobody should doubt it, and nobody should question it, and that's how it is. And if you understand that very, I would say, quite simple fact or way of operating, you start to understand, like, so I'm a member of this place. Let's say you're a woman listening to this, so I'm a member of this religion. So what's in it for me, really? Like, what am I getting from this? Am I getting like a sense of companionship, or what's there for me? And I don't know, maybe somebody in the audience can answer me this, but I don't know if it's a lot there, for you.
Yeah, just like how I said for my one sister, where they told her that if families are happier when they are part of a religion, but really it is actually they say that families are happier when they are part of a community, and the religion acts as a community of belonging. It's just under this one belief. So you can belong to a different community that isn't cult-like, or asking for 10% of your income every month, or tithing, or repent of your sins, or you must be in service and, like, give us all of the spare time you have during the week to be in service for your community. They're pretty strict on their guidelines. And you're right about like the questioning of things too. So recently someone was bringing forth these questions about church history, and then the church was like, whoever he brought it to was just like, no, sorry, I got no answers for you, and refused to answer any of his questions. And they're known as the CES letters, I think the church education system or something. No, yeah. And they're public, but people of Mormons who are reading this are going, these are legit questions, but they feel guilty for asking those questions and wanting an answer, an explanation for it. But then when it also opens up their minds to looking at like the history of the church and going, hey, wait a minute, how can I, in today's world, how could I possibly belong to an organization that has a history like it does? And they're not hiding the history from the members, but they aren't talking about it. They don't say this is what happened, and they'll spin it. No, they're like, we just won't really talk about it ever, and then pretend it doesn't exist. So yeah, it is like in each individual journey to question these things, and then recognize where they're withholding.
Totally. I think that's a big common thread amongst religion. is like secrets. I'm just like keeping, it's not necessarily that it's like they're you know, opening it up or whatever, but they're just not sharing it.
Mhm.
Like the real truth behind it.
Yeah, just
Like-
like the secret ceremonies that happen in the church for marriage.
Yeah.
And not even the bride even knows about it, because her mother wouldn't tell her, because if her mother told her, then her mother like what in the under banner of heaven gave a good example, that had made a vow of death if she was ever to reveal the secret that happened in the temple. So I'd ask some of my friends, I'm like, was there a secret handshake? Is there a secret name that you got to call your husband so that he'll recognize you in the other afterworld? And they're like, no, Cindy, that's just, oh, Cindy. And then they'll just blow me off. And they don't, they'll never admit it because they've made vows. But yeah,
Wow.
secrecy. You're right about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that I jumped ship before that happened.
That the light is on.
Yeah, definitely. So it's like I feel like where this world is going, and like definitely thinking for yourself, question everything, especially within the spiritual realm, because I mean I'm still heavily in like energy and spiritual talk and living that way. It's like I still need to question things. I can't just
Totally.
accept it because I was told it. Otherwise, I'm just like everyone else.
That was-
religion.
That was like exactly kind of segueing into my next question, is like coming out of religion, like kind of going into maybe like where your beliefs are at now. And then any advice for someone who's maybe thinking about, it doesn't have to be leaving Mormonism or whatever, but someone who's really contemplating these different churches, these different like hierarchies, like Ian was saying about the pyramid with like one man at the top talking to God, like where are you at now, I guess, and like what advice would you give to people who are in it?
Yeah, well, even within the spiritual realm too. And I recognize that yes, there's truth in a lot of material out there, but every person that's like spouting off or teaching or like providing insights, they are providing it also with the twist of their own personality. So it's like you're gonna take it in, and it's like, what is your truth? Because you can accept 75% of what that person is saying, and 25% will not ring true with you, and that's okay. It's like, it's not that they're 100% wrong. It's just like recognizing that I don't agree with this one, and keep going on. Like, don't just accept something as like its wholeness is true and just like believe something without experience. And if you want to know if it's true, just like meditate on it. Just like, why do they do this? And then have your understanding, it will come.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I would maybe add a few words as well. Is always like look at the agendas of the people. Is like the agenda that they're publicly offering, their original agenda, and the actual how they're showing up in the world, or even how the church and the people in it are showing up in the world. Are they aligning? Because if you have this high ideal of helping people, or spreading God's work, or something very, very high and virtuous, but at the same time kind of like in secrets and extreme cases, killing people and murdering people, you know maybe there is a discrepancy there, and maybe this isn't the right place to learn and to build a community. Because I think what Cindy said about community, and like how the religion is almost like sold. Oh, so come here into religion because your family will be happier. Again, is it the religion, or are the people there? Is the closeness, the connectedness actually what is making the family and the people in it happier? So I would start to look at and weigh these kind of things that have been put forward for us.
Yeah. And I feel like there's something with our own perspectives too, because we can have like a tainted viewpoint of it, where it's just like, what is their agenda? But you could be so jaded from your experience of maybe like a cultish like religion in your childhood that you see it everywhere and you're protecting yourself all of the time. So how do you really allow yourself to, like, discover those parts of yourself, and like evolve your own perspective also, without like boxing everything on the external, like it's out to get you, because there's a lot of really good stuff out there and there is a lot of charlatans out there. How are you going to distinguish the difference if if you're always sus about everybody and everything? Where do you have this sort of like courage to like explore a new topic, and find it to its point where it's like, okay, I feel like I've gone down this road long enough. Now I can let this go and move on to something else. You always have the freedom to change your mind at any time. And if anyone tells you you can't, like this is the only way, then they're full of it. Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
not
that's
true.
generally a orange or red flag. I read somewhere recently, it was like, I think it kind of touches in with what you were saying there, that wisdom is oh crap. Wisdom is experience without emotion, or it's memories without emotion. That's what it is. Wisdom is memory without emotion. So I think what you're touching in there is like just letting go of your emotion in these topics and like allowing yourself to see the truth and become wise. Like I had a man say to me recently, I'm a 25-year-old in a 60-year-old body. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, wouldn't you want to be a 60-year-old in a 60-year-old body and like have all that wisdom? Like, where are you having a glimpse at your emotions? Is my thought on that.
Yeah. Emotions are a real big driving force, lead us down all kinds of paths. Not that it's good or bad or right or wrong, but it's something to reflect on.
Absolutely.
Can open up new doors in your mind.
Yeah, and if a lot of the things being said to are fear-based, I would also treat that as a kind of like at least a orange flag or whatever.
I like that.
At
Like
least
if-
we're putting a pin in that.
yeah. Like it's like everything is repeated. If you don't do this, you're not getting in. If you do this, oh no. Like it's if that starts to repeat, I'm like, is it really? Or does somebody want to get something out of me? Because if like I've always like go back to these, like again, the Joseph Smiths and the Brigham Youngs. It's like it was pretty obvious these dudes were just trying to get their needs met. Power, women, power, money, women.
Money, yeah.
So if you start to put these kind of breadcrumbs together, I think you will manage to kind of understand where you're at, and if you want to play their game, because this is mostly the game of the people who are at the top. So if you're obviously sitting at the top, okay, I'm joking. It's just like very bad. It's like abusing people, but obviously, most people in those, let's say, hierarchies and organizations are not at the top. It's a very, very selected circle of people who are at the top, and most people are there just to feed that top level, unfortunately. And if you manage to start seeing that as well, again, I would say that's a red flag in this case.
Yeah, and I find it interesting where it was always said to us in church, which was like, always pray and ask if this is the true church. Well, it's kind of like a really unbiased question. Like, I'm just asking, is this the true church? Like, I can yes or no, like, like it's really vague where you're
Is
just
this the true church?
right. And it's like, and then you're so fervent of your prayer. Is this the true church? Of course, you don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so yes, it's the true church. And then you build this testimony, which is the belief that this is true. And that when I look at the story of Joseph Smith, and an angel appeared to him and then gave him these golden plates, and then he translated these golden plates into English, and then the plates were removed because people wanted to like sell the gold or something like that. I just believed it, because that's all I was told. I was never told to like really question the validity of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you never like, let's use some logic here.
Did you ever have a little bullshit detector go off? Like when you were a
No,
kid growing up?
not
in
at
it?
all.
It was just like, this is what it is, therefore I'm believing it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had the same experience in the Catholic Church.
You're a little
Like,
kid,
you're a
right?
kid,
You
your
want to be
parents.
accepted and loved by your family. You'll just
Totally.
do whatever they're guiding you to do.
So you actually, speaking on family, like you touched on that a little bit about being one of 9 siblings. Is a large family fairly normal for a Mormon family?
Yeah. 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 It's normal.
Like normal, whatever normal is.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought the part about how the celestial area where you have your husband or your wife and all your kids in your heaven that you've created is a very interesting cell.
Yeah, because I asked my mom, I was like, hey mom, what if I'm like, don't make it? Like I'm not the good Mormon, and I'm not gonna make it to the celestial kingdom, so then I guess I'm not gonna be in your little heaven. And she's like, oh, you never know. Or then there was another one where I was like, okay, so you got married to dad, you got divorced, like whatever scenarios. I'm like, okay, now and your daughter, she got married to another man, she sealed herself to him, and they're going to go into their own realm, but she's still your daughter, she's still sealed to you. So where does she like not get to exist in your heaven, but get to exist in her heaven with her husband and with her kids? And I'm like, so where's that grounds? And of course she didn't have an answer for me, but it's like, does anybody think about this stuff?
It's a gaping plot hole, really. But this is where you're like taught not to question that, right?
Yeah.
But you've learned to question that. So what has that journey been like for you? Learning to question things but were you always curious though about things?
Not necessarily until like later on, maybe 30, around 30, 27 is when I started to really get into new thoughts.
Oh, okay.
But
was there a specific event that like triggered that, or?
Yeah, lots of little magical happenings. This is like, repeating things that my friend was thinking. And she's like, Cindy, I just was thinking that. What the hell? And I'm like, what the hell? What? I don't know. And I liked the more magical, mysterious things that I was having personally. And then trying to discover like, well, what does it mean when you're reading other people's thoughts? What does it mean when something's going to happen and it does? And so that was more my questioning. And I was on my own in that question and that search. And it built up over time for sure through experience. And each time something magical happened, I just get more and more excited. And I'm like, I want more. I want to know more. So then you go the route of like energy work. And then it's like, okay, well, that sort of fizzled out after a certain point. And it's just like, well, what's next? And then I went the ayahuasca journey and it was like, well, that's different. And it's like, now what? Now that's over. And I would go to a used bookstore and I'd be like, okay, well, what do I need to read? Because I didn't know the topics. I didn't know what to look up. And then there's like this little tiny book and it's like really old from the 70s. And it says something about the way of the shaman on it. I was like, well, that sounds interesting. And so read that. And I was like, oh, I want to meet a shaman. And then I was like praying or like kind of putting out there. It's like, I want to really like get to know someone who has like this kind of connection and ability. And then what do you know, but I meet my partner Joe, who's like the most connected kind of person you can really come across. I was like, how did that happen? And then Joe said, Cindy, like, you got some powerful prayers. What'd you pray for? And I'm like, I don't know. And then like 10 years later, he's still asking me that same question. And then I went, oh yeah. I'm like, I wanted to meet a really good shaman. And boy, did I get lucky, because there's a lot of charlatans out there. And so I got lucky. So yeah, prayers are powerful.
That's freaking amazing.
Mhm.
Ian, do you have? Because I mean, I could do this forever. Like, and I probably will do this forever. But so you go
I mean,
ahead.
I mean, it's interesting. I'm just making some connections, you know, to the Mormon, let's say, upbringing, and because there's a lot of praying in the Mormon church, but now it seems like there's a almost like a healthier version of that without the fear, and you can just ask questions and almost like communicate with life and the universe around you, and these things start coming your way, and there's no guy telling you, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, stop this, or we will excommunicate you.
Or we're gonna make you do a talk.
Or we're going to force you to talk, you know, some gibberish in front of everybody that nobody will understand. So it seems like there's almost like a, you know, like a healthy healing journey here. Or although, like, listening to your experiences, there wasn't a lot of like forcing and shaming. There was some, it seems, but it seems like you got out of it, and you now are, let's say, you know, openly communicating with life, which is I think hopefully for our audience out there, kind of like an example that it's doable. You know, you can get out of this, and you know, probably the celestial spheres are still open for you.
Yeah, I liked how you said it's like a new way of communicating with prayer. Yeah, I was definitely taught like this is how you pray. Or the power of prayer. It's like my understanding of the power of prayer is way different than what that was about. And also how I pray is totally evolved also to like really go far and go expansive, and not be in like the praising hallowed be, like, oh, like I'm prostrating to God all the time. It's more like I'm having a conversation, and it's like, and with my best friend, that's how it's come to be. Like, I need some guidance here, and so the formality of it is like, it's a different vibe completely. The other one was very like, oh, you got to be this way, and now it's like free flowing, so it's like channeling prayers. So but it's like thoughts also, they connect together, so who I'm being becomes like this living prayer, this like living sort of consciousness. So I love it. Yeah, it's just part of my journey.
Be a living prayer. That gives me like goosebumps. Oh my God.
We don't have a little Bon Jovi coming out. Living on a prayer.
I'm not on it. JVJ. Oh my God. Wow, become a living prayer. That's something to think about. That's something to ponder.
Do you feel like this is a good segue to the outro of kind of like living? Let's keep living on this prayer, you know, or living on prayer, or living as prayer, you know, whatever the what were the words exactly?
It's gone. I'm just in it.
No, it's like I think it was like I am a living prayer.
I am a living prayer. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, who I am being is exactly where it's like I am in constant communion with that higher self, and that opening up those new doors to free me from the past, to just keep moving into something new. That's how I feel about it.
That sounds amazing. And that sounds a lot better than some guy telling you that you have to have sex with him, and then these 10 other ladies will also have sex with him, and you should be like super happy about it. And you will get to heaven. You know, guys, put these on a, you know, like a scale. choose for yourself which is better. I think it's a good time to kind of wrap this episode up. Thank you
Yeah.
for to Cindy, and we will link Cindy's website if you want to connect with her. I think you're doing coaching sessions now, and you're doing a bunch of stuff, meditation groups, all of that stuff can be found on that link. Is there anything else, Mercedes or Cindy?
I want to just say thank you to you two. That this good platform, all kinds of topics here.
You're the best. I'm just in this energy right now. After you said that, it was like something clicked. So yeah, if you want these nuggets of wisdom that Cindy is offering, like I highly recommend working with her. I am lucky enough to say she's my friend, so I get to talk to her all the time. But if you would like a little parcel of wisdom like that, book with Cindy. She's offering it on Fox Streamer website.
Yep.
www.foxstreamer.com. We'll link that in the thing. You can also follow her on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks
guys.
Thanks everybody for watching, listening. See you again soon in another episode.
Cosmic Adults out.